As we listen to the president's remarks today and previously, some critics are saying that he ignores reality in what he says in favor of rhetoric. One of those critics, Bret Stephens, foreign affairs columnist with the Wall Street Journal, he writes this week, where he, Mr. Obama, stands apart is in his combination of ideological rigidity and fathomless ignorance. What does the president know? The simple answer, and maybe the truest, is not a lot. Bret is here now to defend those thoughts. Some pretty tough words for the president.
Well, I think I'm increasingly not alone in having a view that we have a hollow president who often says things that are simply at variance with the facts, and it sometimes comes in even relatively anodyne, mundane remarks. He gave an interview last month to the New York Times. He talked about how well Asia was doing.
Let me put that quote on the screen because we have it for you. He says, "You cannot generalize across the globe." This in reaction to Tom Friedman's question about the new global disorder. You cannot generalize across the globe because there are a bunch of places where good news keeps on coming. Asia continues to grow, and not only is it growing, but you're starting to see democracies in places like Indonesia solidifying. The trend lines in Latin America are good overall, still cause for optimism.
Well, it's incredible. I mean, that was the same month, in fact, just days after Argentina, one of the biggest economies in Latin America, defaulted. Brazil is in recession. Venezuela is a dictatorship. Ecuador is headed that way. So here he's telling Americans not to generalize, and then he generalizes about these two large continents, and he gets his facts wrong. So it's on this basis, the factual basis is in doubt, and he's building an analysis on that, which makes me, and I think a lot of other people around the world, that much more concerned about just how well briefed and informed the president is.
What about what he said at the UN today? Did that change your mind on any of this?
Well, this was a kind of a stunning speech. I counted, he used the word collective or collectively at least 5 times. And the president has this rigid ideological fixation with the necessity of collective action. He kept crediting the UN as the institution that, in a sense, embodied the ideals of peace and tolerance in the second half of the 20th century, coming out of the Second World War and into the present. The reality is we have a peaceful, freer world today than we did before because of the reality and the application of American power. And this is something that the president consistently wants to play down. So I looked at the speech. It was a kind of a collection of cliches. But the worrying one was this investment in the idea that we needed collective efforts, whereas in fact what we need is American leadership.
You mentioned in that report that he said in 2012 that Bashar al-Assad's days are numbered.
Yeah, well, this is just another case of just questioning the quality of the president's information. I had been writing back then. A lot of people said, well, his days are numbered. It was very clear that the Alawites, the group in Syria from which the Assad family comes, were going to fight, and they were going to fight very hard, and they were especially going to fight hard in combination with Hezbollah, their ally, powerful ally in Lebanon, and with support from Russia and Iran. So when he said that, you know, Assad's days were numbered, anyone who knew the first thing about Syria had to raise an eyebrow about that sort of claim. He was praising the quality of governance in Yemen and talking about it as an example of American counter-terrorist efforts. Well, the capital of Yemen just fell to an Iranian-backed militia. So again, what the president's notion of the facts are increasingly at variance with reality as the rest of us experience it.
Bret Stephens, the foreign affairs columnist at the Wall Street Journal. Perhaps the White House will be calling you for some of that advice that you say is so lacking.
I doubt it.
All right, Bret, thank you.